1 year after my daughter told me she had forgotten my plane ticket to her own wedding. I stepped off a plane in Tacoma feeling nothing like the woman they had left behind. The automatic doors opened to the familiar smell of jet fuel and cold air, and for a moment, I simply stood there, letting the noise of the terminal wash over me. My passport was heavier than it used to be. So was I, in a different way. But it had all begun on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. The screen showed my daughter's name, Alana. She almost never called in the middle of the day, so I answered quickly. "Hi." "Sweetheart," I said. "Everything all right?" There was a rush of background noise voices, clinking glasses, the hum of a large room. "Mom." "Hey," she said, breathless. "I just have a minute. We need to talk about the wedding." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Of course." "What do you need?" A pause, just long enough for my breath to catch. Then she said it lightly, almost laughing. "So, we forgot to book your seat and your hotel room. Everything is full now, peak season and all that." I thought she was joking. "Forgot," I repeated. "Yeah, it has been crazy here. We booked Dad and Eric's parents and the cousins. And, well, yours slipped through the cracks. You know how planning goes." I knew. I also knew every other person in the family had a ticket. Everyone except me. "I am so sorry, Mom," she added quickly. "Do not be upset. We will take lots of photos." My fingers tightened around the phone. I made my voice soft, because that was how she expected me to sound. "It is okay, baby." She sighed with relief. "Thank you. I knew you would understand." When the call ended, I sat for several minutes, hearing nothing but the faint settling of the house. My hand shook once. A small tremor I quickly tucked into my lap, then, without really thinking, I opened my closet and pulled out a small overnight bag. I did not know exactly where I was going, only that something inside me had shifted, quiet and irreversible, like a door clicking shut before anyone noticed. And that was the moment the year ahead began to shape itself, long before I understood where it would take me. They did not forget me overnight. They learned to forget me one small moment at a time after the call. I sat in my quiet kitchen and let the memories come the way they always did. Soft at first, then sharp. When Alana was little, it had just been the two of us. Her father left when she was 5 years old, and I worked double shifts at the Port of Tacoma's records office to keep us afloat. Some nights I would come home so tired I could barely lift her into bed, but I never let her see that. She would curl up beside me and whisper, "You are the strongest mom." And I believed her. Years passed. I paid for her community college tuition, every cent. When she transferred to a university later, I picked up extra hours and cleaned a neighbor's house twice a week. When she needed child care for my first grandson, I left my job early and drove across town, no matter the weather, holidays. Those were mine to handle. I cooked every dish, cleaned every plate, and never asked anyone to lift a finger. Somewhere along the line, the gratitude faded. I remembered one Thanksgiving. I wore a blue dress I had kept pressed in my closet for years. Alana came up behind me, smoothing my shoulder. "Mom," she whispered, "maybe something less old-fashioned. Eric's parents are coming, and I do not want you feeling out of place." I nodded, folded the dress back into its box, and said nothing. Another time, at my grandson's birthday, I saw a photo posted online. I had been standing at the edge of the group, but in the version she shared, I had been cropped out completely when I mentioned it. She laughed lightly. "Oh, Mom, no one cropped you. It is just framing." Then there was the day she introduced her stepmother figure at a dinner. "This is Marie," she said proudly. "She has been like a second mom, basically raised me too," Marie smiled politely. I stayed quiet, swallowing the sting. Each memory layered itself over the next, and as they gathered, The call about Hawaii no longer felt like a mistake. It felt like the final piece in something that had been building for years. I did not watch the wedding live stream. I did not cry. I simply turned my phone over and started writing a list. The house felt too quiet, as if it knew I had finally stopped pretending. I took out a notebook from the drawer beside my bed and drew 2 crooked columns. On the left, I wrote, "What I have done for them." On the right, "What I have done for myself." The left side filled quickly. Paid Alana's tuition, bought her first car, took care of the boys whenever she called, cooked every Thanksgiving, loaned her money when she and Eric were short, helped them move, helped them again and again. The right side stayed nearly empty. I stared at the blank space until it made my chest tighten. Around mid-afternoon, while the wedding guests in Hawaii were probably taking photos on a beach I would never see, I opened my laptop and pulled up my bank accounts. I read through my pension amounts, the long-term savings I had managed to protect, the widow's benefits that still came through each month, and the small inheritance my sister Judith had left me when she passed. It was not a fortune, but it was enough for 1 year of living modestly, if I was careful. 1 year without waiting by the phone. 1 year without being the emergency contact for everyone but myself. I whispered into the quiet room. If no one needs me, then I will go where I can belong to myself. The words felt strange at first, like I was borrowing them from some braver version of me. But they stayed. They settled. And I realized I meant them. I opened a flight search. Seattle to Lisbon. One way. The price flickered on the screen. High, but possible. I hesitated only once before clicking confirm. As the confirmation email arrived, a thin thrill moved through me. I folded the notebook shut, placed it gently into my bag, and sat very still, feeling the unfamiliar weight of a choice that belonged entirely to me, somewhere far away. Alana was saying her vows. I remained where I was, preparing quietly for a different kind of beginning. Disappearing is not hard when no one is looking closely at you in the first place. 2 days after the wedding, I opened the door to a young traveling nurse named Lila, who had found my listing online. She looked around my living room with careful eyes and said, "This place feels warm. Are you sure you want to rent it out?" "I am sure," I said. "I will be away for a while." She nodded, respectful enough not to ask where a 72-year-old woman was going. We signed the lease at my kitchen table. When she left, I began pulling pieces of my life from shelves and drawers. I wrapped small keepsakes in tissue, setting aside the ones that mattered least for storage. Every so often, my hand would land on something I had forgotten, a necklace Alana made in 2nd grade, a seashell from a beach trip we took before everything in our lives went sideways. I put most of it carefully into boxes, but one photo stopped me completely. Alana was 8 years old in it, missing a front tooth, leaning into me with her whole body. I kept that one. I slipped it into the side pocket of my travel bag. When the house was finally empty enough to echo, I sat on the edge of my bed and typed a message into the family group chat, taking time for myself. "I am okay. Do not worry." I watched the screen for several seconds. No typing bubbles. No calls. Nothing. I powered the phone off and placed it face down on the dresser early the next morning. With only my overnight bag and a jacket, I rode a shuttle to SeaTac Airport. A wedding photo popped up on my lock screen, the reminder I had forgotten to delete. Alana in her white dress, smiling at someone who was not me. I held the image for a moment, then pressed down until it disappeared forever. On the plane, as passengers shuffled into their seats, I slipped my phone into airplane mode. The cabin lights dimmed, and the engines hummed beneath my feet. I leaned back, letting the world I had known fall away behind me, quiet and small. As the plane rose toward a place where no one expected anything from me at all. My first day in Lisbon, I got lost twice. cried once, and learned that starting over at 72 feels like being reborn and terrified all at once. The trouble began the moment I stepped off the airport shuttle. I tried to follow the signs for the metro, but I ended up on the wrong platform, staring at a map full of words I could not pronounce. A young man in a red jacket approached, speaking quickly in Portuguese. I attempted to answer, pointing at my printed directions. He frowned. "Señora, this train goes the opposite way." "Oh," I murmured, embarrassed. "Thank you." He guided me back to the right line before hurrying off. Even with his help, I boarded the wrong train again an hour later. When I surfaced into the sunlight at a completely unfamiliar square, the weight of everything finally pressed down. I found a bench, pressed my palms to my eyes, and let a few tears fall. "Señora." "Cuidado," a voice called. I had slipped on the uneven cobblestone, my knee striking the stone hard. A woman with silver hair and strong arms bent beside me. She said something soothing, helped me stand, and brushed dust from my sleeve as gently as if I were a child. "I am all right," I whispered. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tremble in my voice. She patted my hand and pointed me toward the main road. That small kindness steadied me more than I expected. By evening, I had found the boarding house in Alfama, a narrow building run by a widow named Rosa, who spoke enough English to welcome me without fuss. "You stay as long as you need," she said, handing me a brass key. "Here, you are family." The next afternoon, Rosa insisted I accompany her to a seniors' English conversation circle at a small cafe. I tried to refuse, but she wagged a finger and said, "You will like them." She was right. They adopted me instantly, laughing at my timid introductions, pulling me into their stories as if I had always belonged at their table. Later that night, when I turned on my phone, a new voicemail blinked from Alana. Her voice trembled as she said she hoped I was safe. I listened to the entire message without pressing reply. Then I turned the phone over and let the room fall quiet again. The kind of quiet that came from choosing myself for the first time in my life. By month 5, I had a routine, a purpose, and something I had not felt in decades: relevance. Rosa mentioned that the small community library down the hill needed help. "They have boxes everywhere," she said, waving her hand. "You worked with records. Go. They will be grateful." I went the next morning. The librarian, a soft-spoken man named Duarte, looked relieved when I told him about my years organizing decades of port documentation. "Then you understand chaos," he joked, showing me a storage room full of unsorted archives. "I do," I said, "and I can fix this." He blinked, surprised by my confidence, then smiled. "We could use someone like you." Within days, I was arranging shelves, labeling boxes, and training 2 volunteers on a filing system simple enough to survive long after I left. When a teenager wandered in needing help with a school project, Duarte nudged me forward. "Ask Marilla," he said. "She knows everything." It was an exaggeration, but hearing it warmed something long ignored in me. One afternoon, as I left the library, a taxi driver overcharged me by 40 euros. I knew it the moment he said the amount, but I handed him the money anyway. Shame tightened my throat as he drove off, but it was followed by a stubborn kind of strength. I told Rosa that night. She squeezed my hand. "Next time, you say no." She said, "You have the right." I believed her. Later that week, I opened my phone to check the time and saw a notification. Alana had posted her wedding album. My finger hovered before I tapped it. There she was, radiant in white, her bouquet lifted toward the ocean, and beside her, in the place where a mother usually stands, was a woman I had never seen before. I stared at the picture until my eyes blurred. Then I shut off the phone, placed it face down, and focused on the library schedule for the next morning. The rental income from my house and the small stipend Duarte insisted I accept were enough to keep me steady. My days filled themselves with purpose. And still, beneath everything, a quiet ache remained, stubborn as breath. The 7th time I checked my voicemail in Portugal, I found the message that finally made my hands tremble. I had finished a long afternoon at the library, sorting through a box of water-damaged journals. When my phone blinked with a notification, I almost ignored it out of habit. But something made me press play. Mom. Alana's voice sounded thinner than I remembered. Mom, something is wrong. Please, I know I hurt you. Just tell me you are alive. There was a shaky breath, then silence. The message ended abruptly, as if she had run out of courage. I sat down at the edge of my bed, the old wooden frame creaking beneath me. I replayed her voice, not because I wanted to, but because I could not help it. The desperation in it pulled at something deep, something I had tried hard to quiet. A soft knock came at my door. It was Rosa, holding an envelope. This is for you. The guest house owner down the street asked me to give it to you. Inside was a handwritten note from a man named Tomas, who ran a small guest house catering to travelers. He explained that he needed help organizing bookings, invoices, and correspondence. Someone had told him I once managed large volumes of records. The note ended with, "If you are willing, I would be honored to pay you fairly for your time." I carried the letter to the window and read it again. It felt almost unreal. A place, a purpose, income I earned myself, and a life built entirely out of choices I had made. Marilla Rosa leaned into the doorway. Good news, I think so, I said. I think it might be exactly the kind of work I know how to do. Her smile was knowing. You belong here. You know that. Yes, I folded the letter carefully. Maybe I am starting to. But when I picked up my phone again, the tremor returned. Alana had sent another message. Shorter this time. Mom, please. I need you. Both realities pressed against me at once, the life I had built with my own hands and the daughter whose voice cracked as if she finally felt my absence. I set the phone down gently and let the quiet settle. Unsure which direction my heart would pull me next, I did not tell them I was coming home. I simply booked a return flight and walked into Tacoma like a ghost returning to flesh. At the airport, I moved through the terminal without calling anyone. My suitcase wheels clicked over the tiles. Steady and sure. Instead of going to my house, I checked into a small hotel near the waterfront. The clerk asked, "Visiting family?" "Something like that," I said. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and only then sent a single message to the family group chat, "I am in town. Dinner, if you want." Within moments, replies stacked up. We met at a restaurant on Pearl Street. They were all already seated when I walked in. Alana, Eric, and his parents. A tight, nervous silence followed as I approached. Alana rose halfway, then sank back into her chair. "Mom," she whispered, "I cannot believe you are here." I took my seat. No hugs, no theatrics, just the air between us, heavy and waiting. Alana's eyes brimmed instantly. I was terrified. "You disappeared. You did not answer. I thought," her voice cracked, "I thought you were gone. I was living," I said quietly. Eric cleared his throat but kept his gaze fixed on his napkin. His mother offered a brittle smile. "We are all just glad you are safe." Alana wiped her cheeks, forcing steadiness into her voice. "I know the wedding's situation was awful, but things were chaotic. Plans got mixed up. People were stressed. It was never meant to hurt you." She slipped into the old explanations as easily as breathing. I listened without interrupting, her words tumbling out like a script she had practiced. When she finally ran out of excuses, I reached into my bag and laid a single printed photo on the table, the wedding portrait where another woman stood with her, hand on her waist, in the place a mother should have been. Eric's mother inhaled sharply. Eric's jaw clenched. Alana stared at the picture as if seeing it for the first time. No one said a word. I folded my hands in my lap and let the silence widen, giving the truth room to breathe at last. For the first time in my life, I did not soften my voice to make other people comfortable. I picked up the photo from the table, held it between my fingers, and looked directly at Alana. "You did not forget the ticket," I said. "You remembered everyone else except me." Her breath hitched. Eric stiffened beside her. "Mom, please," she whispered. "I told you." "No," I cut in, steady but quiet. No more half-truths. No more chaos excuses. You left me out. I want to hear the real reason. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I did not reach for her the way I always had. She swallowed hard, shoulders trembling. I was scared. She finally said, "Eric's family, they are different. They are used to certain things. I was worried you would feel out of place, or that people would judge. I panicked." Eric shifted, uncomfortable. "Alana," he murmured, but she held up a hand. "I thought if I kept everything controlled, it would go smoothly," she continued. "And I told myself, you would understand. You always understand. I always understand because you always expect me to," I said. The words felt sharper than I intended, but I did not pull them back. Her face crumpled. "I am ashamed, Mom. I know I hurt you. I know I did." Silence swelled around the table. I let it settle before I spoke again. "I am not here to punish you," I said, "but things have changed. My life, part of it is in Lisbon now. I have work. I have friends. I have a rhythm that does not revolve around waiting for you to remember me." Eric's mother blinked, as if startled that I had a life they did not know about. Alana wiped her cheeks with both hands. "So you are not coming back." "I will visit," I said, "but I will not orbit around you anymore. I choose where I stand now." She nodded slowly, absorbing the shift in front of her. I felt it fully the first time I had ever chosen myself in her presence, and the air between us settled into something new, fragile and real. 6 months later, the strangest thing happened. My daughter asked me first. It was early morning in Lisbon when my phone rang. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something nudged me to pick up. Alana's voice was careful, softer than I remembered. "Mom, we are having a naming ceremony for the baby next month," she said. "We want you there, and before anything else, we are planning around your schedule. You come first." I sat down at the small table in my room, smoothing the edge of a notebook with my thumb. "I appreciate that." I said. "We mean it," she replied quickly. "Tell me what works for you. We will adjust." For the first time in my life, I checked my own calendar before answering. I had commitments, the library archives project, my weekly hours helping Tomas manage the guesthouse bookings, a dinner Rosa insisted I attend. These were pieces of the life I had built with my own hands. "I can come," I said at last, "but only after the second week of next month." "That works," Alana breathed. "Thank you. And, Mom, I am glad you have good things there. I really am." Her sincerity landed gently, without expectation. Back in Tacoma for the ceremony, things felt different. Alana introduced me proudly, stayed close, asked about my flight, about Lisbon, about the people who had become my community. I answered openly, but without shrinking myself. The balance felt new and steady. A few days later, I returned to SeaTac Airport. The overhead speaker crackled. Now, boarding Group 1. I looked at the boarding pass in my hand, feeling the quiet truth of it settle in my chest. I stepped forward, no longer trailing behind anyone, no longer waiting for permission. Before I reached the jet bridge, I pulled out my phone and typed, "If you want more stories like this, like, comment or subscribe. There is more to come. I am just getting started." Then I walked forward, choosing my own seat, in my own life, on my own terms.